The transport schemes across the courtyard faster than it should. And before the warning bell even finishes its first note, a hand closes around my arm and pulls me sideways out of its path. I stumble, catch my balance, and turn to see who just touched me. A young man stands there, breathing hard, still holding my sleeve like he has not yet realized what he has done. His name, I will learn seconds later, is Ethan Cole. He is new to the academy. He does not yet know what I am. My hearts are pounding, and not because of the transport that nearly ran me down. He just touched me, skin to fabric, hand to arm, direct contact sustained for several seconds, and he is still standing, still breathing, still looking at me with nothing but concern. That should not be possible. My name is Allara Vance, and for 11 years I have carried a mark on my collarbone that every student, every teacher, and every visitor to this academy learns to fear on their very first day. It is a simple pale blue symbol, small enough to hide under a collar. But everyone here knows what it means. It means my body carries a passive neural signal that reacts violently with almost any advanced nervous system. It means that closeness to me for most living beings ends in seizure, collapse, and death within the hour. It is not a threat I choose to make. It is simply what I am. So when Ethan Cole let go of my arm, laughed a little at his own reflexes, and asked if I was all right, I did not answer right away. I was too busy waiting for him to fall. He did not fall. "You grabbed me?" I said when I finally found my voice. "You should not have done that. You were about to get hit by a transport," he said, like this was a completely reasonable answer. "I am marked," I said, tapping my collarbone. "Do you understand what this means?" He glanced at the mark, tilted his head, and shrugged. "I read the orientation packet. Something about a resonance hazard. Didn't really get the memo on staying away from people, if that's what you're asking." I studied him carefully, searching his face for any early sign of what should already be happening to him. A flush of blood to the skin, a tremor in the hand, a flicker behind the eyes that signals the brain beginning to misfire. There was nothing, only mild curiosity. I told him to leave before something changed. He did not leave. He walked me the rest of the way to the science hall, chatting the whole time about how strange the transport lanes were designed, as if he had not just broken a rule that every other student on this campus had followed without question for years. That night, I ran 3 separate scans on the sleeve of my uniform, searching for any biological trace that might explain what had happened. I found nothing unusual. No resonance transfer, no sign that contact had occurred at all, aside from a faint smear of dust from his hand. It made no sense, and it kept me awake far longer than I wanted to admit. The next morning, he sat down across from me at breakfast. The hall went quiet in the way it always does when someone approaches my table. Except this time, the quiet had a different shape to it. It was not relief that someone had finally learned better. It was surprise because nobody sits at my table twice. "You are back," I said. Figured the seat by the window was still open. He set his tray down like this was any ordinary decision. "Nobody else seems to want it. There is a reason for that." "Yeah, I heard some kind of neural thing. Contact with you is supposed to be dangerous." He picked up his fork. "I touched your arm yesterday, and I feel completely fine. That does not mean it is safe. It might simply mean the effect has not caught up with you yet." He did not seem worried by this. If anything, he seemed intrigued. The way a person looks at a puzzle they have decided to solve out of stubbornness rather than necessity. Over the following weeks, I ran every test I could think of. Blood samples given with his permission, and a surprising lack of hesitation. Neural scans in the biology lab late at night when no one else would ask questions about why a marked student was scanning a human's brain activity. Every result came back the same. Nothing. My professor, a sharp-eyed woman named Miriam Doyle, finally sat me down after the 4th failed test and explained something I had never considered before. "Human neural patterns are unlike almost anything else we have studied," she said, adjusting the display on her desk. "Their baseline brain activity is already chaotic. Constant competing impulses, emotional signals running against logical ones, contradictions held at the same time without collapse. Most species would call that a malfunction. For humans, it appears to be normal operation. That sounds dangerous, I said. It should be, she agreed. But perhaps that is exactly why your resonance does not affect him the way it affects everyone else. Your ability works by pushing a nervous system into a runaway loop it cannot survive. If a human brain already exists inside something close to a controlled version of that same loop every single day from birth, then perhaps there is nothing left for your resonance to break. You cannot shatter a structure that has already learned to hold itself together while cracked. I did not fully accept this explanation until 3 weeks later during an evening study session in the West Library when Ethan reached across the table to study a stack of falling data tablets, and his hand brushed mine. I froze completely. He barely noticed. "You okay?" he asked, already moving on to the next tablet. I was not okay. I had just experienced full, unguarded physical contact for the first time in 11 years without instinctively preparing to watch someone collapse in front of me. "I am fine," I said, though my voice did not sound fine at all. Word travels quickly at an academy full of bored, brilliant students with nothing better to gossip about. Within a month, everyone knew that the marked girl had a human sitting at her table and that the human appeared to be, against every known precedent, completely unaffected. The reaction was not what I expected. I thought there might be relief or curiosity, or perhaps quiet celebration that the danger surrounding me was somehow smaller than everyone believed. Instead, there was concern. Not concern for me. Concern that the Academy's safety protocols were being questioned by a first-year student who apparently did not take warning seriously. I was called into the administrator's office on a gray afternoon, exactly 6 weeks after the day Ethan first sat at my table. The administrator, a stern man named Gerald Finch, did not offer me a seat. "You understand the purpose of the isolation protocols," he said. It was not a question. "I do. And yet you have allowed repeated physical contact with another student in direct violation of Academy safety policy." "I did not allow it," I said. "He initiated it. I have run every test available to me. There is no measurable resonance transfer. He is, as far as I can determine, simply immune." "There is no such thing as immunity to a Class 3 hazard," Finch said. "There is only luck that has not yet run out." His words settled into my chest like a stone. I had thought the same thing myself more than once in the quiet hours after Ethan left the library. What if Doyle's theory was wrong? What if the resonance was simply slower in him, building towards some delayed and far worse collapse? What if I was the reason a bright, stubborn young man would eventually stop breathing, and I would be the only one standing close enough to watch it happen? "I want the two of you separated," Finch said immediately. "He will be reassigned to a different residence wing, a different study schedule, and a different meal period. This is not a punishment. It is a precaution that should have been in place from the beginning." I did not argue. I could not. Not while the fear he had planted was already spreading through me faster than any resonance ever could. I told Ethan that evening in the corridor outside the science hall that he needed to stay away from me from now on. "Why?" he said, and for the first time since I had known him, there was no easy humor in his voice. "Because Finch is right," I said. "There is no proof that you are safe. There is only proof that nothing has happened yet. I cannot be the reason you stop existing. You didn't seem worried about that a month ago." "I was foolish a month ago." He studied me for a long moment, the way he had studied the falling data tablets before catching them, like he was calculating exactly how much effort it would take to fix something before it broke. "Doyle told me about her theory," he said. "The chaos thing, the idea that our brains already run on contradictions. It is only a theory. Maybe, but I've had 4 scans done on me since I met you, and every single one came back clean. That's not luck running out slowly. That's a pattern." He took a step closer, close enough that the old instinct in me screamed to step back, and I did not move. "I'm not asking you to prove I'm safe. I'm asking you to stop deciding for me what risks I'm allowed to take." I had no answer for that. Nobody had ever spoken to me as though my danger was something to be weighed and chosen rather than something to be feared and avoided entirely. 3 days later, the situation became far more serious than either of us expected. A first-year student named Priya Malhotra, unfamiliar with the campus layout, wandered into the West Library during a private testing session. Doyle had arranged to study my resonance field under controlled conditions. Priya was not marked as a hazard. She was simply a curious student who did not realize the room was in use, and she stepped directly into the containment field before anyone could stop her. I felt the resonance connect the instant she crossed the threshold. It is not something I can describe easily to anyone who has not experienced it. But imagine a sound only you can hear, growing louder the moment another mind enters range. And knowing that sound is the beginning of a countdown. Priya went pale almost immediately. Her hand shot out to the nearest table for balance, and her breathing turned shallow and fast. Doyle was already moving toward the emergency shutdown panel across the room, too far to reach it in time. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the same one I had run in my own head 1,000 times. How many seconds until collapse? How many seconds until the panel? And the terrible gap between those two numbers? Ethan was closer to me than either of them, standing near the doorway where he had been waiting to walk me home. "Get her out of the field," he said, already moving toward Priya. "You will make it worse," I said. 2 additional bodies close to me increases the resonance load. "Then narrow it," he said. Doyle said the field responds to attention, not just proximity. "You said it yourself weeks ago when you were running scans on me. You said it feels stronger when you are afraid and weaker when you are calm." He was right, and I had almost forgotten it in the panic of the moment. My resonance is not a fixed broadcast. It amplifies with my own emotional intensity, spreading wider and striking harder the more frightened or overwhelmed I become. I had spent 11 years assuming the only safe response to danger was distance. I had never once tried the opposite. I closed my eyes, forced my breathing to slow, and reached for the same stillness I used during meditation exercises in the evenings. The exercises Doyle always encouraged, and I always dismissed as unnecessary. I pictured the field not as an uncontrollable storm, but as something with edges, something that could be pulled inward rather than allowed to spread. Priya's breathing was growing worse. Doyle reached the panel and slammed her hand against it. But the shutdown sequence would take another 20 seconds to fully engage. And 20 seconds is far more than enough time for a resonance cascade to finish its work. Ethan crossed the last few steps between himself and Priya and put both hands on her shoulders, steady and firm, the same way he had steadied me on the day we met. "Look at me," he said to her. "Breathe with me, in and out, slow." It should have made everything worse. Another mind entering close range should have doubled the load on an already failing system. Instead, something strange happened. Priya's panic, which had been feeding the resonance and pushing it toward collapse, found something steadier to match itself against. Ethan's calm, chaotic, contradiction-holding human mind did not add fuel to the cascade. It gave Priya's frightened mind something stable to imitate, the way a person struggling in water will calm down faster near someone who is not afraid of drowning. Her breathing slowed. The tremor in her hand eased. Color returned to her face just as the containment shutdown finally engaged with a soft mechanical hum, sealing the field before it could ever reach its peak. Nobody in that room spoke for several long seconds. Doyle was the first to move, checking Priya's pulse, her breathing, the response of her eyes, confirming again and again that the girl in front of her was, against every precedent in the Academy's history, completely unharmed. "That should not have worked," Doyle said quietly, more to herself than to any of us. "Maybe it worked because we stopped assuming it couldn't," Ethan said. Finch arrived minutes later, alerted by the shutdown alarm, expecting to find a tragedy and finding instead 3 shaken students and a very confused professor. He listened to Doyle's report in silence, his expression unreadable, and when he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its earlier certainty. "This changes nothing about the protocols," he said. "Not officially, not yet." "But," Doyle asked. "But I will be requesting a full review," he said. "And until that review is complete, I am not going to stand here and separate 2 students whose combined presence just kept a 3rd student alive." He left without another word. I stood in the middle of a room that had nearly become a tragedy, next to a girl who was still trembling with relief and a young man who was looking at me, not with fear, not with pity, but with the same steady curiosity he had shown me on the very first day we met. "You did that," he said. "Not me. I just gave you something to hold on to. I do not think I could have done it alone." "Maybe that's the point," he said. "Maybe nobody is supposed to hold a storm back by themselves." In the weeks that followed, the Academy did not suddenly abandon its caution around me. The mark on my collarbone still means exactly what it has always meant to nearly every living being who crosses my path. And I do not expect that danger to disappear simply because one remarkable exception exists. But the exception is real, and it is no longer alone at a table by the window. Priya joined us for meals twice a week after that, always at a careful distance at first, then closer as trust grew between us, the way trust is supposed to grow slowly and honestly instead of being forced by fear or forbidden by policy. Doyle continues her research into human neural patterns, though she now openly admits her early theories only explained part of what she witnessed that day in the library. The rest, she says, may simply be something science has not yet found the right words for. As for me, I still carry the mark, and I still walk carefully through a world built to avoid me. But I no longer walk it thinking that distance is the only answer to what I am. Some walls, it turns out, were never meant to stand forever. They were only waiting for someone stubborn enough to walk straight through them.